Hello, friend and colleague. It's Nikki from Full Voice Music. On the podcast, I am unpacking the forever challenge in our studios, talking about practicing. Now, practicing is a complex topic, but in episode 194, I am talking about improving our instruction and essentially creating more inclusive spaces, turning challenges into opportunities right here on the Full Voice Podcast. Hello. Thank you for choosing the Full Voice Podcast and welcome to our show. I have a very important episode, and I'm excited. I've got 9 pages of notes in front of me. A lot of thought and research and information has gone into discussing our topic today, which is practicing. Now, before I dive in, I want to say hello to my friends and colleagues around the world. I hope everybody is keeping well. It's spring in the Northern Hemisphere, and if you are like most voice teachers, you're preparing students for either exams or recitals or performances, and I hope your season is going well. If you are preparing students for exams, recitals, and performances, then you're probably talking about practicing a lot. And that's what we're going to be talking about today on the podcast. Now, I have a feeling that this topic might bring new listeners to the podcast. So if you are just joining us for the first time, I want to introduce myself. My name is Nikki Loney, and I have been teaching forever. I have been teaching privately in small group classes for over 30 years. And I have experienced many trials and tribulations and challenges with the practicing topic. And I'm going to be sharing some of those today. I'm also the Chief Creative Officer. That's what I'm going to call myself here at Full Voice Music. And Full Voice Music is a small but mighty publishing company. We specialize in resources for young singers. And Full Voice Music has been serving teachers from around the world for over 20 years. The Full Voice workbooks are available worldwide. We partner with incredible composers who specialize in children's music, and we also work with a lot of academics who are experts in the field of learning and working with singers. And one of the big things that we've been doing a lot lately, and I want to shout out to all the teachers that have joined us for our teacher training workshops. We just had Dr. Ginevra Williams do her presentation on voice growth and change. So many incredible takeaways. So we do a lot of teacher training, and we create wonderful resources to make teaching easier. This podcast also serves teachers, and we share pedagogy, business strategies, and best practices for your professional studio. Now, I have to tell everybody that I've been hesitant, like 194 episodes hesitant, to get into the deep and dirty of practicing. Why? Well, it's complex. There's so many reasons why a student may be struggling, may be challenged with practicing at home. And there are many reasons, good, bad, and ugly, why practicing is such a challenge. And honestly, I feel, deep breath, that many practice challenges are actually the result of some common teacher traps. And I also believe that some teachers are struggling with practicing because they're actually not meeting their students where they are developmentally. I said it out loud. And I also feel that practicing stress for teachers often comes from communication issues in our studios. I said those things out loud. Yeah. So if you were looking for quick tips and easy wins, this podcast is not going in that direction. But I hope that you will stick it out to the end, because I am sharing some very interesting information that I think you can take back to your studios. So my evil agenda for this episode is to inspire you to address practicing challenges as opportunities. Opportunities to level up your teaching, opportunities to support your families, and opportunities to create beautiful, inclusive spaces for all types of learners. So that's my goal today. Now, before I dive into this topic, I want to ask you a question. My voice professional friend, you have had a long journey. Were you a diligent, hardworking voice student? Like, did you practice regularly? Did you have epic battles with your parents about practicing? Was that like a big struggle in your household? Did your teacher give you a hard time? Like, did you get the lecture from your teacher? Now, what about in college? What about when you got to a higher level? Or as a professional musician? How often do you practice? Now, how would you compare? So if you're an instrumentalist, like how would you compare your practicing, like say piano versus practicing voice? Now, how motivated are you? How motivated were you back in the day? Like, was there a time in your life where you decided, no, this is what I want to do, and practicing became like you just did it? Or did you have to learn skills along the way? Did you need help? I can honestly say that in my early days, I did not practice singing very much. I was really good at singing by ear and I could pick things up really fast. So I never really got any grief from anybody. But when I started doing things more professionally and more seriously, then I realized, probably by screwing up a few opportunities by not practicing, that I needed to practice. So I definitely got my game together, I would say maybe my second year in college. My first year in college, I was really lucky because I had my roommate, Chrissy, shout out to Chrissy. We were friends like forever. Amazing singer, Chrissy. So Chrissy was a year ahead of me. So she actually had a lot of the tools for practicing. She had a boyfriend who was a keyboard major who actually played a lot of the vocal tests and recorded them for her. So she had like all of these practice recordings, which she kindly had given to me, which immediately set me up for success. Like I had this advantage over a lot of my other classmates. So, I mean, having the right resources can make a world of difference. So we're going to talk about all those types of things today. Now, I always ask questions at the beginning of podcasts because it's our personal experiences will always influence or shadow our pedagogy. So it's really good to reflect on them and really think back of how things happened for you. And, are you expecting things from your students that maybe you shouldn't or you should? Now, before I get into the details about what we're talking about today about practicing and helping our students practice, I do want to shout out all the teachers who are working so hard and doing great things. I know the teacher's heart. I know you want to see your students succeed. I know you want to see your students love singing and music as much as you do. I know you want to see them be successful at home and do the practicing. So let's just start with some celebrations. So first of all, I want to shout out to all the teachers that are working so hard to make learning fun. Student-led, play-based instruction not only is engaging, it is naturally motivating to students and not just children. My friends, all learners. If I don't have it on the top of my head right now, but we did a podcast with Dr. Ginevra Williams. She talked about happy hormones and how you need to be happy in order to do the best learning. And I'll put the exact podcast number in the show notes. But Happy Hormones with Dr. Ginevra Williams. So for those of you who know how important it is for students to be enjoying themselves, and you're doing that, you're supporting your students. Play-based learning is a topic that is dear to my heart. We do a play-based learning engagement and lesson pacing workshop. It sells out every time. It's huge. It's transformative. We passionately embrace student-led play-based philosophies here at Full Voice Music. That is the whole focus of our entire company. Our resources are, we always say our resources are teacher and kid tested, but truthfully, we're often more interested in the children's feedback, because if they don't like it, we don't publish it because we know you're not going to have wins with it. So for those of you who are giving students autonomy and choice in the voice studio, that's allowing them to take ownership of the learning. And for those of you that know that play supports that positive attitude towards learning, because if your students leave your studio with a big, big smile on their face, they are far more likely to want to sing at home. So shout out to all the teachers doing all the great work and making it engaging and fun. That is probably, I would say, I'm not good at math, but I would say that's 50% of the battle, maybe even more. I also want to shout out to my friends and colleagues that are doing some really fabulous studio community building practice challenges. Oh my goodness. I follow so many of you on the socials, and I know that some studios have just completed some practice challenges studio-wide. One of the studios did a fundraiser for the local animal shelter, which is so, so lovely. And there's lots of ways that you can do fun practicing challenges, practicing marathons, and that can really go a long way of rejuvenating people's interest and celebrate everybody's efforts. And I love that. Now, I just wanted to mention, it's not just music studios that do these practice challenges. So in Hamilton, my yoga studio did these very intense studio-wide practice challenges every single quarter. And it was huge. They'd have a big sign-up board. They'd have massive prizes. You could win like a year of yoga classes, massages, yoga mats, all that stuff. You actually had to pay to be part of the challenge because they opened up all these new classes and you had access to every single class plus the bonus classes. And it was huge, and it was a studio-wide, lots of support, lots of fun. Their social media blew up. And not only did it rejuvenate the dedication to their members practicing and to doing their yoga and self-care, but it also showed a lot of people in the community how much fun yoga was, and it brought a lot of new people into the yoga studio. They would always have an increase in enrollments. So there's a little tip for those of you, making things fun and sharing and celebrating everybody might actually bring people into your studio. Now, I just wanted to point out, I find this very interesting. Practicing in yoga is showing up to class. Like when you show up to class, you're practicing yoga. Interesting. It took me about a year, I would like to say, of yoga classes. Like I had to go to a whole bunch of different classes. I had to find teachers that I really connected with, and I had to like do sun salutations forever before I actually felt confident to actually do like any kind of serious practicing at home. So those practice challenges really helped to kind of build my confidence. So interesting to think about how other industries look at practicing. You can learn a lot from and take really great examples from that. I also want to shout out to all the teachers that are embracing technology or software to streamline the systems in their studios for not only practice, but for communicating with, say, parents or families or students. There are many practicing and scheduling apps and software. Now, I am not going to list them here. I am going to direct you to Google search or to the app store of your chosen preferred operating system. And the reason that I'm not going to list a whole bunch of them is because they do have a tendency sometimes to come and go. And I do believe that you have to do your due diligence. If you're going to be looking to use some sort of technology, you got to test it out. And you got to commit to it for at least a few months. And that means teaching your students and their parents how to use it, and then being consistent in how you remind people to use it. A lot of these programs can have costs to them, so you want to make sure it's a really good fit for your studio. But for those teachers who are finding the systems, the software that works for them, whether it's a scheduling app for scheduling and note taking and communicating with parents, or whether it is a dedicated practicing app. There's some that gamify it, with like visuals and games for the kids on the iPads. There's pros and cons to all of these things, but in order to find the things that work for you, you got to give them a try. So shout out for teachers that are trying to keep the practicing and communicating up to date and fun. Keep on with yourself. And I also want to shout out, and this is a big one, I talk about it a lot on the podcast. It is not a popular opinion, but I want to shout out to all the teachers who are partnering with parents in music lessons. Teachers who are welcoming in those parents into their studios and allowing them to sit in on lessons so that families can see what you do in the lesson, so that they can support their children at home. And I want to shout out to the teachers that are happily answering questions in addition to celebrating students and giving parents feedback. Parents need feedback. They're going to have questions and they need feedback. I think that those teachers having those face-to-face or voice-to-voice conversations with the people that they're doing business with are probably having less struggles with practicing. It's just a thought, something to think about. All right, so shout out to all of you doing the hard things and finding the success. It is an ongoing, challenge, but there are so many opportunities now to connect, to support, to celebrate, and I know that many of you are working hard to do that. So let's dive into some of those practicing challenges and what we can do to help our students. Now, I do want to differentiate. There's different types of music studios. So generally speaking, I would say if you are a teacher that is running what I would call a high-level competitive result-driven studio, so you're working with the students that are on a career track, they have professional intentions. So you are probably less likely to be dealing with some of the challenges that, say, a teacher that is working with beginner students of any age, by the way. It's not just children. Beginner students, like avocational students, they have different motivations. They have different goals than, say, somebody that is on a career track. So I think for the teachers that are running those studios that are dealing with more professional students, you're not going to the consequences of not practicing at that level kind of take care of a lot of the practicing issues. I know it did for me when I started working professionally. Practicing wasn't an option. I had to do it to survive. I had to do it to put food on the table. But if you are working with beginners, avocational singers, regardless of the age, their motivations, their reasons for being there can be very different. So I think one of the things that we can do, and that's important, is that we do need to align our expectations to the needs and the goals of our students. So if you're working with a professional, practicing is serious business, right? They have to. No, there's no joke about that. But what about the goals for any beginner who's just starting with singing lessons? A child that's just trying something new, a parent that sees that their child is really interested in singing and is just getting started. What should their goals be? Or an avocational adult that is just started. I mean, it took them a lifetime to build up the confidence to come to your studio to just discover their voice. What do we compare their goals to that of a professional? So if you are a teacher who is welcoming all abilities, all levels, how do we set them up for success? Like, how do we support them? And I think it's a really important check-in. Are we comparing one student's progress to another student's progress when they have different goals and objectives? So here's some guidelines that I use for my beginners. So if I am working with young children or a beginner adult, my first goal for that student, for that family, is to make them confident and comfortable enough that they enjoy singing at home. The end. That's what I want. That's my first goal. I'm not going to ask them to sing exercises. I'm not going to give them a list of things they have to do. I just want them to sing at home. And I want them to be able to get set up at home. And you can start this conversation about the enjoyment of singing at home before they even get started. And this is a really great practice that I started doing a few years ago. So I would always ask students. So if it was a child, I would talk to parents first, and I would just say, do they like singing at home? Or if I'm dealing with an adult, I'm like, do you like singing at home? Right? Do you feel comfortable singing at home, or are you comfortable to sing at home? Where do you usually sing? Now, this question, it totally opens up a conversation that may identify some of the singing challenges. And to have this conversation before you get started can help everyone, not just you, the teacher, but parents and the adult, get started on the right foot. It can help them kind of address some of those concerns before they get frustrated. Now, I highly recommend that you put a question like this on your student intake form to get this conversation started. Do you feel comfortable singing at home? Where will singing at home be taking place? And this will lead into another important conversation, which is about what devices will be used for practice. Who is responsible for getting the backing tracks or recordings onto said devices? Here's a couple of examples of things that we were able to address before we had issues. I have had adult students that aren't really good with those mobile phones. They don't realize that they've got like a little mini computer in their hand, and there's so many things that they can do. I've actually had to show my adults how to access YouTube videos and karaoke videos on their phones. They didn't know. They didn't know you needed an app for YouTube. They didn't know you could record voice memos on their phone. So sometimes initial lessons can be getting families or adults set up with simple tools to make practicing easier. We often assume that everybody knows that you can go here and you can do this and you can download this. So these types of conversations, if they happen in the beginning, can just get everybody started and avoid so much conflict down the road. Now, I wanted to just share a little story. This came when I was doing all the notes for the podcast. This came to my mind because, and I think this is helpful. So this is quite a few years ago, probably over a decade ago. I had a mom who signed her daughter up. I do believe she was about 8 or 9 when she started. And we had the initial lesson, and I used to bring students in and parents in. I would talk about what we do in a lesson. I would show them some of the fun things we do. We talk about, the songs that, they would be singing and finding out what they were interested in. And then I would always talk about singing at home and getting set up and how important it was and all of that. Now, and the initial lesson went really well, really sweet little girl, really liked the mom, but after the initial lesson, the mom sent me this email, and she was informing me that she was recently separated from her husband, and it was a really challenging time for them. They had split custody, and that her daughter would be at her husband's house every other week. And she wanted me to know, because I had gone into like how important practicing is, she couldn't guarantee that singing practice could be done at his house. And she let me know that she acknowledged that she was not worried about if the progress was slower. She just wanted her kiddo to enjoy the lesson, and that she would support her to the best of her ability. And I have to tell you, that was helpful information. I'm really glad she gave me that information. It gave me a far better perspective on what I was to expect from that student. And when I maybe noticed that things were taking longer, I certainly didn't get upset about it. Like, I didn't take it personally. And it gave me a better idea of like support. So how I could support that. And she was in my studio for quite a few years. I really loved her. She was a sweet little girl, and I really liked her mom. And I just wanted to remind teachers that families may not disclose details like that. And I, respectfully, I get that. But it's fair. I think it's fair to remind ourselves that family dynamics are unique, and we might assume that students have support that they don't, or we might be putting a lot of expectations onto families that are, just not able to focus and make it a priority. And I think that's something we need to, again, in aligning our expectations. We might not realize that the kids don't have the support at home for many different reasons. It could be a family that's just not musically inclined. I've had a lot of moms and dads who are not singers, are not interested in singing, are not musicians. They don't, like, music was not something they excelled at, and they really don't feel confident or comfortable. But kudos to them, right? Kudos to them for signing their kids up for singing or for music lessons. Like, I think we have to recognize that, some parents just don't know what happens or why, or the who's, the what's, the whys. And I want to tell you this as a family who would have liked their son to play piano. We have a sports kid, and there's lots of times where my husband and I, Sean and I, feel a little overwhelmed because we don't understand, the rules of rep baseball. When my son started playing rep baseball, we did not know what was going on. We had to ask a ton of questions. I still will say that to some of his coaches. They'll start using like acronyms or language. Noah's coach, Vince, I love Vince, will say things like, yeah, we're going to be putting up some big numbers today. Like, I don't know what that means. And so I often remind coaches, I'm like, hey, so just fun fact, we're musicians and this is all new stuff to us. So I might have more questions. And thankfully, most of my favorite coaches, by the way, my favorite coaches and trainers that Noah have worked with are the coaches that have been kind to me and have answered my questions and have not made me feel like an idiot. So just something to keep in your hat when you're dealing with families. They might not understand what is going on. So how can you support them? Now, all right, I have another question for you. Do you have a student in your studio right now? I want you to close your eyes and take a big breath, who is not practicing, and you are super, super frustrated because you have to constantly repeat that lesson material, or you have a student that takes forever to memorize a song? Have you gotten frustrated? And I see this in forums, people say stuff like this, and you feel like you're babysitting. You feel like it's a big waste of your time because they are not obviously interested, I'm being sarcastic there, in what they're doing in your lesson. Now, I want you to know that we all have had those students. And I want to remind you, this is so, so important. Did you know that your ability as a teacher is not measured by how quickly your students make progress? I'm going to say that again. This is so important. Your ability as a teacher is not measured by how quickly your students make progress. This is one of the most common and probably the nastiest teacher trap. And I learned about that teacher trap way back in my beginning years of teaching when I went to a Randall Faber of Faber and Faber Piano Adventures. I went to one of their workshops and they were talking about lesson pacing and how quickly we move through those beginner piano books. And that's what he told everybody. And he made everybody repeat it back to him. And I thought, wow, that is something I think about all the time. It is impossible for teachers to avoid that teacher trap because we have our big teacher hearts, right? We love singing. We want to see our students love it as much as we do. We want to see them succeed, and we want to see them succeed now. We also struggle. Hard truths here. We also struggle with these fragile artistic egos. We also struggle with massive cases of imposter syndrome. And when we don't see quick wins or consistent progress, we often start to question our abilities. Or, hard truth, we play the "they are not my ideal client" card. Now, there are times when somebody isn't our ideal client, but I want to call out that shenanigans about students that are struggling not being our clients. It is understandable that we get stressed out about this because we do want to show families that they've chosen the right teacher and that they are making a valuable investment. And I think this is one of the reasons why students who don't or can't or won't practice, they bring us so much stress. This is why the practicing question comes up in almost every single workshop that we offer at Full Voice. Even if the workshop isn't about practicing, somebody always has a question about practicing. How do you get them to practice? I know it's causing you a lot of stress. I know it can be a stressful thing. So this is why this podcast is going in different directions, because if we are to acknowledge that the majority of our students are signing up willingly, and they have an interest in singing, and they have at least some basic support at home, what could be stopping our students from enjoying singing at home? All right, so this is the moment I have been waiting for. We're going to talk about lesson pacing. If you have feelings about students needing to be further along than they actually are, or if your expectations for progress are not being met, if you just feel that your students should be far, far ahead than they are, or if you're doing the compare and despair, which I hope you're not, if you're comparing one student against other students, I want to share some helpful insight to some of the reasons why our lesson pacing may be why our students are struggling with practice. That's right. It could be our instruction that is making it difficult for them to practice. And this is where we are going to do a little bit of a dive into childhood development and executive functioning skills. In my honest opinion, this is the missing piece in regards to developing practicing skills. And executive functioning is a huge, huge part of it. Now, I want to tell everybody the term executive functioning is a new term, at least it is for me. I would say it's only been in the last couple of years that I heard this term and I started to understand it. And I want to tell everybody, as the head of a publishing company that specializes in music resources for young humans, I regularly, with great interest, invest time and money into professional development around all things early childhood, early elementary childhood learning. I take a lot of courses. I follow a lot of educators. I bring these educators into my Zoom room for workshops. So I want to shout out to a very wonderful human. Her name is Tara Sumter. and her Seeds of Learning community. So Tara is an SLP, and she specializes in executive functioning skills. And I want you to follow her on the socials. So I'll put a link in the show notes, but it's Tara, Tera Sumpter, Sumpter, and her platform is Seeds of Learning. Now, I just want you to know that her work and her information is 100% applicable to anyone that is working with young learners. Now, I was part of her summer cohort, her learning cohort, and my friends, my mind was blown open with a much better understanding of the support that our young singers need. Actually, not even young singers. It can really be all ages. And after doing the course this summer with her and going to her live office hours, and I had the wonderful opportunity to just ask her a bunch of questions during her live office hours, I found myself reflecting on some of those students in the past of my career that I really struggled with, and how I could have supported them better, right? I wish I had a do-over. This is what keeps me up at night. It's the kids and the students that I did not give them a space where they could succeed. I take full responsibility that I was not providing them the information or the support that they needed. So, when you know better, you do better. And I know coulda, shoulda, woulda, but I find myself often reflecting on those students, and I wish that I had another chance. So let's dive into some of the executive functioning skills. This stuff is fascinating, and I am in no means an expert, which is why you're going to go follow Tara on the socials. And if you are really wanting to dive into it, her learning cohorts are reasonably priced, and her membership is just really accessible. So what is executive functioning? All right, let's just dive into the definition. So, and why? Why is it so important? Why do we need to know about this? So I'm reading, this is from Tara's materials. So executive functioning skills refer to cognitive processes that help individuals manage and regulate their thoughts, actions, and emotions to achieve goals. These are crucial life skills for planning, organizing, decision-making, and adapting to changing situations. We start developing executive functioning skills from birth, and we continue to develop these skills into early adulthood. So, yes, your teenagers and your young adults may need support to develop these skills. Now, if you have taken any of the courses with Dr. Shannon Coates about neurodiversity in the voice studio, Shannon talked a lot about executive functioning skills and individuals with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, or ADHD. So this is also from Tara's material. It is understood today that ADHD is a neurodevelopmental disorder that affects all ages, and it can impact the area of the brain responsible for executive function. So students who are neurodiverse may need extra support when it comes to developing and strengthening their executive functioning skills. So I want to go through the list of what are executive functioning skills, and I'm going to actually put this list, because there's a big list, on the show notes. So if you would like to go check out or go to the podcast page, I'm going to put this information there if you want to just kind of grab it. So first of all, key executive functioning skills: attention, the ability to pay attention; working memory, which is the ability to hold and manipulate your information in your mind while you're performing tasks; inhibition is an executive functioning skill, the capacity to control impulses, resist distractions, and maintain focus on the task at hand. Task initiation is the ability to independently start and follow through with tasks. Cognitive flexibility is adapting and switching between tasks, perspectives, or strategies. Planning and organization. This is creating your systematic approach to getting tasks done and organizing your resources. Time management. The ability to estimate, allocate, and manage time effectively to complete tasks. Then you have emotional regulation, the ability to manage and control your emotions in different situations. And metacognition. This is interesting. The ability to reflect on and monitor one's own cognitive processes, including being aware of strengths and weaknesses in thinking and learning. That's really interesting. So as an adult, I can reflect on, man, I'm really tired today. I'm not thinking straight, or I'm not very organized. My team knows. My team knows that Nikki struggles with time management because she likes to put in 500 tasks and then put a end date on it. And the team also tells Nikki that that's not a good end date. Let me just say the team helps Nikki with her executive functioning skills. Now, here's a quick question. How many of these skills are required for successful progress? So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 key executive functioning skills that I just have. Okay, it's a trick question. All of them. All of these skills, cognitive skills, are necessary for successful practice. So no wonder practicing is so challenging for all ages, for everyone. No wonder bribing your students with stickers is not always going to solve your problems. No wonder those threatening policies in your studio policy forum, threatening to kick them out, isn't really going to do anything. But wait, friends, there's a few more reminders I want to give you. When it comes to executive functioning skills, you probably can recognize this. Some people will excel in these skills. So I'm really good at attention. I can stay focused on things for a long time. And I also have fabulous working memory. Like I can picture things and I visualize things really well. It helps me to stay focused. But I am not good with my time management. And I am not good sometimes with emotional regulation. It's true. Sometimes I just get so frustrated and angry. I have to reset and calm down. But there's that metacognition. I recognize that I am not good with my emotional regulation, so I have strategies in order to help myself. So it's interesting that one student may be struggling and need support with certain skills and another student might not. The other thing that I want to bring in, which will totally play into your studios, is the influence of sleep and nutrition. Those students who are coming to your lesson and they are tired or they are hungry will struggle with their executive functioning skills, especially attention, working memory, and decision making. And we've all been there, friends. We've all been tired. We've all been starving. Like when I am hungry, there is no thinking going on. I'm just thinking about how hungry I am. So when we are helping our students to recognize that if they're coming to our lessons, we might not have a productive lesson that we were looking for. And obviously that's going to reflect on how they practice later on. So I want to take a couple of these. There's a lot here. There's so much information here, but I'm going to take a couple of the key executive functioning skills and how they will specifically show up in a lesson. And most importantly, I want to give you some strategies to address them with our lesson planning, our lesson pacing, and tiny modifications to the way we teach, the way we give our students information can make a huge impact. So I want to start with an example of working memory and how this executive functioning skill can show up in our lessons. So specifically, I want to talk about nonverbal working memory. So Tara explains working memory as the ability to hold information in our mind in the short term, retrieve and integrate old information, and formulate new thoughts and or actions for the purpose of an immediate goal. So, in short, it's the ability to think. So, nonverbal working memory is when someone visualizes something and holds it in their mind. So if I were to say to you, I'm going to go to Starbucks and I'm going to get that matcha latte, I can see that matcha latte in my mind. Oh, I can see and I can think about it. So let's take an example into our studio. So when we're introducing a new song, and we're reading lyrics of the song, if your students don't understand the lyrics, and reading comprehension are two very different things. Just because somebody can read aloud does not mean that they actually have the pictures in their mind. And when they can't put a picture of something familiar or something that they know in their mind, or a visual of the story in their mind, it's going to be very difficult for them to be interested at all. Right? So if you have a student that's struggling with attention, it could be because of nonverbal working memory. They don't have a picture in the mind. They don't know what you're talking about. B, it can be very difficult for them to stay focused in the lesson and to want to repeat that information again and again, because it's nonsense. It's just random words that don't make sense. And they're certainly not going to remember any of the material after the lesson is over. So how could they even go home and practice it? They don't have a picture. They don't remember. They haven't connected with that. So if you have a student that struggles for memorization, it might not be a practicing issue. Essentially, it might be that we haven't allowed them to connect to the story, to the idea. They haven't personalized it in a way. So in lesson planning and lesson pacing, lyric discovery is more than just reading out the lyrics. It is asking questions. It is also allowing students to participate and to personalize the information. If you're singing about a cat, do they have a cat? What color is the cat? What's the cat's name? I call this anchoring. And when we have personal experiences or an idea about the lyrics, this is going to improve their attention. This is going to make it engaging because it's something that they know and they understand. And this is the reason, by the way, friends, if you have been to the Full Voice Song Library, every single song download on our library has pictures, not only on the score, but on the lyric page. Carefully chosen and kid-tested pictures. And this is to help start the visualization of the images and the story in their mind. This is why early childhood reading books have pictures. It helps them connect the words with the image, and it makes the learning easier. So that is something that can help get in the studio. That's something we do in the lesson that helps them learn better, and it makes it more engaging, and they're going to want to take it home, and they'll be more successful at home. Now, the other one is, which is really interesting, I totally had no idea about this, but it makes so much sense, is time management. Now, the term used to be time blindness. We don't use that term anymore. Time impermanence is another better term, a non-ableist term that we can use. So the sense of time passing is a learned skill. Now, I guarantee if you're a teacher and you're teaching half-hour, 45 or hour lessons, you are very aware of time passing. You've got to get all this information in with a time. This is a learned skill, right? This takes a lot of time. See what I did there? To learn and to get the sense of time passing. And we talk about that, right? Sometimes time passes so quickly and sometimes time passes so slowly. Well, to children, Time passes miserably slow. Everything is forever. This is why asking children to wait is a painful, miserable experience. My 13-year-old literally crawls out of his skin when he has to wait for anything. I'm talking 30 seconds on the microwave. So here's a funny thing with Noah. So we're trying to get him to cook more meals for himself, make him a little more. He likes, he can make crab dinner, he can make, quesadillas. But anytime he has to heat anything up in the microwave, right? This is he cannot stand to wait for 30 seconds. So if I say to him, "Oh, you've got to defrost that. It's going to take a minute." He's like, "Well, I'm just going to do it for 30 seconds." And he literally will pull it out and it'll still be somewhat frozen and he'll be so angry. And I said, "Well, I told you it would take a minute." And he's like, "That's too long." So this time management and sensing time and how long something takes, 30 seconds in the microwave is a tragedy to a 13-year-old. Now, even though I understand the struggle with the time management, I don't often handle his impatience really well. I do get really frustrated with him. So I appreciate if you're getting frustrated with those impatient students. So here's the challenge with time management. When a student thinks something takes too long, they will immediately want to avoid the task. It's going to take too long. They're not going to want to do it, right? So we can help students overcome their overwhelm and help them understand the passing of time by breaking things down into smaller sections and making it more manageable. Now, this is where those analog clocks are helpful. And if you don't have an analog clock in your studio, I highly recommend that you get one. And I would actually recommend that you get one that you can kind of put on the piano or close to the student. And I'm going to explain why. A digital clock, and everybody has them, right? We have them on our phones, all of that. It does not visualize the passing of time. It's merely numbers and it's math. Ew, gross, math. So for example, if you started singing your song at 4:37 and you finished it at 4:42, it only took how many minutes? Well, that's math. And I don't do math in public. But that mathematical equation is actually quite advanced for a child, and it doesn't give them a picture of that it was only a couple of minutes and it didn't take that long. So understanding that the passing of time and, the comment of it's only a couple of minutes, they don't have the sense of that. So this is how you can help them to work through this. So when you're working on a task and you've broken it down into smaller pieces for your students, and they complete the task successfully, ask them, how did it feel? How did that feel? You just sang that song all the way through. It was only a minute. How did that feel? Was it easy? That didn't take long at all. Do you think you could sing it 2 times back to back? It wouldn't take very long. And then you can show them the analog clock, right? And I know this is a audio podcast, but I'm like holding my fingers like an inch apart. Like this hand moved to this. It only went 3 little lines. That's not a lot of time. How did it feel? So you celebrate the completion of these small tasks and you remind them that this is a minute or that's only 5 minutes. I used to do that with my teenagers. So in my studio, we want to model that practicing. And for me, I want my students to feel comfortable and confident to sing through their song, their whatever exercise, at least 3 times. First time you do it, it's going to be rough and yucky. Second time you do it, you're going to actually start to focus on some things. And the third time you do it, you're actually going to make some adjustments and some corrections. Minimum 3 times is a rule in my studio. Now, I make them do it in the lesson and I point out, you sang that song 3 times. It only took 6 minutes. And I'll show them on the clock. It's only from here to here. This helps to alleviate that burden of this is going to take so long. I got to sing my song a whole bunch of times. Now, this brings us into another one of the executive functioning skills, which is initiation. So initiation is the ability to get started on a task. The opposite of initiation is procrastination. And people tend to procrastinate for several reasons. One, that time, right? The overwhelm by the length of the task. So if we've addressed that in the studio by telling them, you sang this 3 times, it only took so many minutes. You told me it was easy. It felt easy. Look at you. You were successful. That can go a long way with helping students get started at home. Now, the other challenge with initiation is that they don't know even how to get started. And friends, I have had adults that just don't know how to get started. Well, I think the app was on my phone and I don't know where that file went. And it's just, I get so frustrated with my phone. I couldn't get started. So laying out a plan and working through that plan step by step. Okay, when you get home, or with, I'm going to use my the adults that I've had to work with and just help them with the tasks in the plan. So show me your phone, find the app that we were looking at. Now go into the app, find the song. Oh, there it is. Yeah, you got it. All right. Close out your app. Let's do it again. So again, helping students with these little tasks can go a long way because when they get home, they're feeling a bit tired. Maybe they're a little hungry and now they can't remember how to find the app and the song. They're going to just not bother. And then the other thing with initiation is the difficulty beginning undesirable tasks. So again, this goes back to the very first thing we talked about at the beginning of this podcast, which was getting students to enjoy singing at home. Making sure that it's something that they enjoy doing. They're set up properly, they feel good about themselves. So, lesson pacing, right? Helping our students understand the passing of time, breaking the tasks down into smaller, more manageable bite sizes. All of that can help with those executive functioning skills. So, I've got a few more things here. I hope you're finding this fascinating. I think that, I think there's just so much more we know nowadays, back then when, just in learning in general, how minds work, how brains work, how learning works. There's just so much new information for us. Now, I do want to remind teachers that none of these strategies, the lesson pacing, none of these are quick fixes, right? It takes forever. See what I did there? Forever. No. It's most important when we're looking at lesson pacing for teachers to remember a few things. So first of all, allowing students to do the things in your lesson. So allowing students to actually do the things you're talking about and giving them the opportunities to do those things again and again and celebrating, right? More repetitions, celebrating their efforts. And then the other thing that is often missing, and this is another thing, if you have a student that is just needs more and more repetition, they need more and more repetition. Teacher-guided review. Teacher-guided review. Are you giving enough teacher-guided review in the lesson? Students of all ages need more guidance. Now, again, this is different from, say, the studio teacher that's working with professionals. Your expectations would be in line that you go over something, or even when I was working with professionals, they come to you like with their songs ready, and your job is to fix the things or help them discover the things. In the beginner studio, we're teaching them the things and we're teaching them the song and breaking things down for them. So just a different experience altogether there. Now, some other practicing challenges and considerations. I just, again, want to put this out here, and I do have strategies for how we can support. It's important, yes, to set the guidelines for families and students when it comes to practicing, but it really will look different for a lot of families, and it can depend on a bunch of different things. So first of all, the confidence level of the child. So you will have both children and adults who are not confident singers, and it may take them a lot more time than you would like for them to have the confidence to work independently at home with their singing. And some of our students just need a safe space and support to sing. And I have had adults, avocational adults, who are not going to practice at home because they do not feel comfortable to practice there and they need the support. So you want to remember that, again, their progress, you don't want to compare it to somebody that is, auditioning for the local theater or auditioning for a program. This is a person that is coming for support. And I get this because, I think I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, it took me well over a year of going to classes and doing yoga with the teacher's guidance before I felt comfortable to try even a couple of sun salutations at home. It took me forever to learn that damn sun salutation, right? I'm so enlightened. Damn sun salutation. Anyhow, so one of the biggest challenges, and I've talked about this before on the podcast, is the whole singing in front of parents for children. So if you have a child and their confidence level and they're just not comfortable singing in front of moms and dads, this is one of those obstacles that we need to address right away. And it's not as a horrible ordeal as many of you like to make it out to be. If children will not sing in front of mom and dad, they're not going to practice at home and it's going to become a struggle. Guaranteed. End stop. So this is why I encourage teachers, and I always have parents in my studio for the first lessons, at least a month. Now, don't get me wrong, my friends, I love it when parents are not there and I feel that the student can sing and I can instruct without parents watching me. I like that. But I also know that parents have questions and they may or may not know how to support their kids. And if we can do this together in the beginning, that sets them up for greater success. So, and it doesn't take that long. It really doesn't take that long. It literally 3-4 weeks of singing in front of mom and dad, and that bandage has been ripped off and they can start to work at home a little easier and more confidently. So just something to think about when you're getting started with students. Now, I do want to talk about managing expectations. And a lot of, I believe that a lot of unnecessary human suffering and teacher stress do come from having like a predetermined outcome that's actually not based on the situation. And managing expectations means to take the time to actually understand all sides of the situation and then change, do something different, DSD, do something different. We might have to realign our perspectives, or we might have to change our teaching approach, or we might have to support them differently, but we always need to be checking in on this. And I want to give you a really challenging situation in my studio, but one that actually ended really well. And I can look back now and it's all great, but back then it was so frustrating. So I had a young singer in my studio who was struggling immensely with home practice. Like, it was a nightmare. Her music was never memorized. And it was like it was like I had never taught her the song. She'd come back the following week and it was like gone. It took months to see progress, and preparing for recitals was a out of my mind stressful experience. I dreaded her lessons. I was super, super frustrated, and she pulled it off at the recitals. I don't know how she did, but everyone was frustrated, but mostly me. She really stressed me out. Now, thankfully, and this goes back to having better relationships with families and better communication with families. So I loved her mom. Her mom was great. Great sense of humor. She always made me laugh. She'd bring me coffee. Oh, gosh. Every time. She'd text me. She's like, I'm going to Starbucks. What would you like? So, like, you can't get mad at a kid whose parents, like, give you coffee from Starbucks. Teacher tip. So In talking to her mom and working through this, her mom was frustrated too. Her parents were frustrated, and they were making, like, a substantial financial commitment to lessons. But I discovered that there were two big obstacles for this singer. First of all, they lived in an apartment building, and the loud singing was not appreciated by their 90-year-old neighbor, grumpy old grandma, they used to call her. And the other challenge happened kind of halfway into one of the years that we were working together, where her dad actually started working shift work. So he was often sleeping during the day. So this was we had a really good conversation about this. So we made some changes to how things worked for her. So home practicing for this student was what we called quiet work. So this was speaking lyrics aloud, reading the lyrics aloud, lyric discovery. In fact, if you've been on our website, we have lyric discovery sheets. And I created those for this student because if she couldn't sing and practice at home, I wanted her to know the story of that song really well so that we could get to the meat and potatoes in her lesson. So if you're looking for lyric discovery sheets, go to fullvoicemusic.com to the free resources page. You'll see them. They're wonderful, and I've used them with a million of my students. So I also gave her assignments like watching and critiquing YouTube performances. So she was really interested in musical theater. So I would make her watch professional performers, and she would like jot down and write down like the choreography, the gestures. What did she do? How did she gesture? When did she gesture? She'd write on her lyric sheets. And she would work on acting and movement for the songs. But we did all the big singing, the loud singing in the lesson studio. And her lesson pacing was different because I knew, parents knew that this is where the loud singing could happen. And it worked. It worked. Now, if I wanted to compare her progress, which we should never, ever, ever do, but if I wanted to compare it, perhaps, maybe, it was slower than other students in the studio. But she was successful in her own time. And her parents knew what she was to work on at home. And actually, her mother would actually like talk to her about the acting and all of that stuff. Very supportive parents. And she actually went on to audition. I started working with her when she was in grade 7. And in grade 10, she went on to audition for the school's, the city's School of the Arts. And I just realized I feel so old. She graduated from the School of the Arts like a couple of years ago, and she graduated with honors. So this is how we manage expectations and how we can pivot in our studios to honor the situations and the circumstances of our students and still serve them, still make them part of, let them be a part of our studios and celebrate their successes. I think this was, and I mean, it sounds like a really romantic story. Friends, there was so much frustration from the student, from the parents, from me, mostly me, when this went down. So when I look back, I was like, this was so easy. It wasn't, but there's a lot we can do to honor and support our students. So, I'm pretty pooped. I think I've gone through all 9 pages. So I'm gonna wrap things up as I get my pages here. I don't think I've typed as many notes for any podcast ever. So for those of you who are addressing those practicing challenges, know that there's a lot that we can do on our end to support, whether it is addressing how we are giving our students information, our lesson pacing, our lesson planning, our lesson pacing, honoring the fact that practicing is going to look different for different students depending on the support levels that they have or don't have, and that doesn't need to be a problem. That our students of all ages, not just our kids, are developing the cognitive processes that help them organize their time, their resources, their thoughts, and there's so much that we can do to support them. Phew, I made it. Did you make it? Did you stay to the end? I hope you did. And I hope you had some teacher takeaways. So I want to remind everybody, Full Voice Music, one of our new features are live office hours. So live office hours are where we have a free, 100% free Zoom room hangout. You have to sign up for it. You have to be part of our newsletter to get notification about live office hours. Now, we've had some incredible live office hours. I've done a live office hours on helping students with pitch accuracy. That was packed. There was a lot of people in that live office hours. We also had Dr. Ginevra Williams come and talk about all things changing voice. Live office hours, packed with teachers, great questions. The one that's coming up, I am going to do one about practicing down the road, and I am doing one all about full voice resources. A lot of teachers just aren't sure how to utilize them or want to get more out of the full voice resources. So if you would like to ask your burning questions about about anything voice pedagogy, I want you to sign up for our newsletter. Go to fullvoicemusic.com, find the newsletter button, and sign up. Now, I need you to know that I got better things to do than to harass you with lots of emails. So I just send out the good stuff, all the opportunities, workshops, specials, sales, live office hours, registration. I hope to see you in my Zoom room. The fun thing about our live office hours is that we do have prizes. That's right. There's usually a draw for some resources. And yes, you have to show up to the live office hours to get the prizes. However, you can watch all of the live office hours on our YouTube channel. So if you go to YouTube and go to Full Voice Music, you will see the podcasts there. You will see our lyric videos there, and you will see the live office hour recordings there. So you can check those out. My friend, I hope you found some beautiful opportunities in this podcast to support your students, to improve your instruction, and to celebrate all learners in your studio. As always, I am wishing you inspired teaching, fabulous practicing, and happy singing.